during World War One. We entered in 1941 in December. We'll talk about the situations there. The first little part here, I'm going to kind of review what we were doing prior to this and then leading up into things. So the first little thing here, this entire one is basically nothing but review. I do need to understand it. I do want you to get down to stuff about the neutrality acts that I'm going to tell you here, because remember I told you I was going to focus on this. So first off, we're going to review the neutrality acts, okay? In neutrality acts, here's what it is, right? Notice Dr. Seuss, I love this, right? So we have Stalin-itch, Hitleritis, fascist fever, Nazi fever, the Blitzpox, the Italian mumps, and this is going on in Europe. And we consider that, since we're in a separate bed, since we're on a separate hemisphere, we'll be protected from this. And so a lot of people in the United States are calling for us to stay out of the war, be isolated. Remember that return to normalcy and all of that. So the first thing is Congress wants to make sure that we're not going to get in any foreign entanglements, and so they issue these neutrality acts, right? So let's talk about the neutrality acts. The first one happens in 1935. As we see, things are starting to get a little chippy. We issue in the first neutrality act, 1935, and it's basically a general embargo. Embargo means to stop selling. So we are not going to sell anything to anyone who's fighting with someone else. So if you want something from us, and remember, we're still giving people out. We're the major creditor nation in the Great Depression, even though we're hit pretty hard or will. But if you're going to fight someone else, we're not going to help you. So that's the first one, 1935. Now in 1936, we further and said, okay, we're not going to sell you weapons. We're also not going to give any loans or credits if you fight. We would still give some money, per se, to belligerents, people that are aggressive. But in 1936, in Neutrality Act number 2, no loans, no credits. Okay? The third one, 1937, we're not going to sell anything to Spain. Remember, Spain's involved in a civil war. So we're not going to sell anything to Spain. But China, we will sell stuff to China. Why is that going on? Well, in Spain, our two biggest rivals are going at it, in Hitler and Stalin. So we don't have an interest there. Whereas in China, we're trying to stop the spread of communism, and so we're there. Now, 1937 here, this also includes the cash and carry provision. Okay. Now notice here, neutrality, right? Get your ostrich bonnet here. Relieves Hitler headache. Forget the terrible news you've read. Your mind's at ease in an ostrich head. This came, and then notice it says from Lindy. Lindy was a senator. He was the big proponent of the things here. And notice how the people are sticking their head into the sand like an ostrich to avoid danger. Okay. Now, 1939, we have this cash and carry gets expanded, and it actually becomes the Cash and Carry Act. We're gonna sell weapons to Britain and France on a cash and carry, and there will be only one organization to sell arms. In other words, we're not going to have all these different brands. It's all going to be one thing, and it's all under the control of the U.S. government. So the U.S. government has kind of nationalized the arms sale. Remember, General Nye said that we make money off this. So the United States says, well, let's control it all in-house, and then thereby we can do that, okay? So here was the mentality of Dr. Seuss. We have the aid to our allies, but we're doing circles with these neutrality acts. We've got to make a decision. Okay? Now, going back to this before I get to Arsenal Democracy. Remember that cash and carry is kind of the last part of this Neutrality Act, and basically we're going to provide aid to Britain and France. We're going to sell our weapons, etc. Okay. Now, here's a little propaganda, right? The U.S. must become great arsenal to save democracy. We've got to make weapons industries. We've got to make materials. FDR maybe is seeing something here, because in 1940 we're not involved in the war, yet we're building up warplanes by the ton in the year, and he's offering them through what is called cost plus. That basically means we're going to pay for you to to make the plane, as well as like give you some extra. And so why are we doing this? We have to have this arsenal of democracy to help out. Notice here's some more propaganda, right? 24 hours a day and 7 days a week is hardly time enough to supply materials for democracy's defense. The Okanite company, operating full-time, has expanded its plant and greatly increased skilled working force to do 3 needed jobs. Notice the war supplies for England, we're going to defend the United States, and we are going to have factories producing defense supplies. So that's the 3 purposes of the arsenal of democracy. And remember, the arsenal of democracy has a really big thing to do with the relationship between Roosevelt and Churchill. Churchill at one point even made a big quote where he said, U.S. and England are 2 halves of the same walnut. Generally speaking, if you split a walnut perfectly down the middle, it will be symmetrical. Both sides will look exactly the same. And that's what he's saying. Okay? We do have the basis for destroyers deal in there. I think I skipped over that. Go back to it real quick. So we do have the basis for destroyer. FDR, I'm going to give you old boats. You're going to give me bases so that I can keep my Navy close, and then I'm going to help you out as well. Okay? Lastly, we have the Lend-Lease Act. Remember, we're going to lend-lease anything to our allies. Remember, the 4 big allies we had were, or 3 rather, were England. Remember, France gets knocked out because they can't fight. But we have England, we have China, and we have the Philippines. So we're trying to defend these main allies at this point through the Lend-Lease Act, giving them, as you can see, war supplies, airplanes, heavy armaments, etc. That should have been mainly a review, save those neutrality acts. Now the next thing is the fight to even get involved was so great, and so we'll talk about that.